That's all for sports. Mark and Whitney, back to you.
All right, sounds good, Andrew. Thank you very much. We have a lot more news coming up in our second half hour tonight. Helene has become the deadliest hurricane since Katrina. Details on President Biden's visit to the devastated areas.
Your new ride has arrived. Enjoy more trips and shorter waits from Community Transit. Explore more travel options and easy connections to light rail in Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace, and Shoreline. See where transit can take you. Visit ctgo.org/ride transit.
We rely on our partners at Ferguson to make sure everything runs smoothly, from product selection to finished project.
Shop the best selection of brands like Jet Air at your local Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery.
What I really love about mountain biking is how you just get away from it all. The wind in your face, the fresh air, and the speed and the curves. To me, it's therapy. There is nothing like the Wenatchee Valley. You have trees, you have open fields, and of course the views. We really have it all here. We love this place, and we think you will too.
Let her buck. It's a way of life. It's taking on the day, no matter what it throws at you. And that's why it's on every bottle of Pendleton whiskey. It's not just poured, it's earned.
Creme 2 just feels, I don't know, more real, more honest.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 6.
I'm more involved in what's going on in our local community, so I'm watching.
Fraudsters are targeting seniors.
There's a lot of honesty and integrity in it. One of my favorite things is if I have a question or there's a scam, I can send in a text and they do verify.
I set out to get some answers.
I don't know any other channel that does that. It just feels like they're people I would like to go out to coffee with. I'm Connie, I'm from Spokane, and I choose KREM 2.
KREM 2 News at 6 continues now.
Thank you for staying with us on KREM 2 News at 6:30. I'm Whitney Ward.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Let's start this half hour with another look at the weather and an incoming storm. We are expecting strong winds to move into the inland northwest tomorrow, prompting a KREM 2 weather impact alert day.
So we want to learn more about that. Let's send it over to Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Legoo.
Well, it looks like the wind will pick up around noon. I think we'll be at the strongest from about 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Our threats at that time will be blowing dust and an increased fire danger. All you need to do is just be aware that that's taking place. Just know that it could get dusty while you drive, or any of your activities or actions could result in a fast spreading wildfire. So just try to mitigate that risk. Blowing dust advisories stretch from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it's a similar story for those wind advisories. On top of that, we also have red flag warnings running from noon to 6 p.m. So it looks like it's going to be a little bit earlier with those. And it looks like the wind does start to pick up around noon. That's ahead of the cold front itself. It'll be a southwesterly wind at onset. Then, as the frontal boundary moves through, we'll get a little bit of light rain. That'll be your indication that it's actually here. On the backside of it, it's a westerly wind pushing everything out. We'll have a few lingering showers, but by Saturday morning, we're back to sunshine and mild weather. Mid-60s tomorrow and Saturday, 70s return on Sunday. And despite those afternoon showers, I still think we hang on to a little bit of sunshine every single day.
All right, sounds good. Jeremy, thank you very much. The death toll now tops 200 in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. The storm roared ashore 1 week ago today in northwestern Florida as a strong Category 4.
President Joe Biden is continuing his tour of the devastated areas with visits to Florida and Georgia. Nicole Valdez has the latest now from Nashville.
Helene is now the deadliest hurricane to hit the U.S. mainland since Katrina.
Unfortunately, we have up to 33 fatalities in the state of Georgia right now,
bringing the overall death toll to more than 200, with hundreds more still missing. President Biden visited Georgia and Florida for a first-hand look at the destruction. During one stop, he walked amid the damage in northwest Florida, near where Helene made landfall a week ago today. And in Georgia, he visited a pecan farm that suffered extensive damage.
President Jimmy Carter once said, "Tremendous progress can be made when we persevere through difficult challenges." This is a difficult challenge we're facing.
Across the region, people are struggling. This man is bottling river water to use at home.
You gotta do what you gotta do. That means use this to flush your toilet, drink the bottled water.
We know people need drinking water, they need food, they need household supplies, they need personal hygiene supplies, they need cleaning supplies, and we still need people around the nation to consider helping us and bringing us those resources.
6,700 members of the National Guard, along with at least 1,000 active duty troops, are distributing food and water and helping with rescue and cleanup efforts across 6 states.
Good girl.
And through all the misery, there have been some moments of hope. Firefighters in Kingsport, Tennessee rescued this dog that had been stuck in a tree for days. Nicole Valdez, CBS News.
The union representing 45,000 striking U.S. dock workers has reached a deal to suspend their strike until January.
Workers with the International Longshoremen's Association will resume their work immediately. That agreement will allow the union and the U.S. Maritime Alliance to negotiate a new 6-year contract.
Both sides reached an agreement on wage increases, but additional details have not yet been released. Nearly 3 years after an accidental shooting death on set, the Western film Rust has a premiere set for next month. That movie, starring Alec Baldwin, will debut at an international cinematography film festival in Poland. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was fatally shot in 2021 with a prop gun Baldwin was holding. The manslaughter case against Baldwin was dropped because the prosecution failed to turn over evidence. And this week, a judge denied a request for a new trial by the movie's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. A federal jury has convicted 3 former Memphis police officers for the beating death of Tyree Nichols during a traffic stop last year. Nichols' death sparked national protests and calls for broad changes in policing. Jurors deliberated for nearly 6 hours today, returning with a mixed verdict. All officers were convicted of witness tampering related to the cover-up of the beating, but 2 officers were acquitted of civil rights charges. The witness tampering charges carries possible sentencing of up to 20 years in prison. The civil rights charge carries up to an additional 10 years in prison.
3 big game guides in southern Idaho have been indicted for illegally killing 11 mountain lions. They were indicted for allegedly violating the Lacey Act, which is a federal conservation law that prohibits the illegal trade of wildlife. According to court records, the guides worked for a licensed outfitter but conspired to illegally book hunting trips. Mountain lions killed during these hunts were then transported from southern Idaho to at least 7 different states. All 3 guides pleaded not guilty. Their trial is set for next month in Pocatello. In the meantime, a Great Falls man was sentenced for illegally cloning hybrid sheep for private hunting reserves. The 81-year-old rancher created a giant sheep hybrid by crossbreeding different species from Montana and the country of Kyrgyzstan. The illegal breeding operation also involved more than 100 other sheep, including 74 brought in from Minnesota and 43 from Texas. The man is facing 6 months in prison and a $20,000 fine.
Still to come tonight, an astronaut is getting the word out for other men to take charge of their health after he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. We'll share his story when we come back.
Plus, Vice President Harris and former President Trump hitting the battlegrounds. Still to come, the latest on the race for the...
What I really love about mountain biking is how you just get away from it all. The wind in your face, the fresh air, and the speed and the curves. To me, it's therapy. There is nothing like the Wenatchee Valley. You have trees, you have open fields, and of course the views. We really have it all here. We love this place, and we think you will too.
Let her buck. It's a way of life. It's taking on the day, no matter what it throws at you. And that's why it's on every bottle of Pendleton whiskey. It's not just poured, it's earned.
This outdated DMV has two forms of my ID.
Think of all the places that can expose your info. LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. If there's a problem, we fix it. Guaranteed.
Krem2's weather impact pinpoints days you need to be on alert.
If weather is going to impact your day, we'll tell you about it first.
At Krem2 News, we're out in front of severe weather, warning you days in advance with weather impact alerts. You'll know exactly when, where, and how weather will impact you and how to stay safe. Krem2's weather impact is not hype. It's a heads up with a clear and easy to understand forecast every time. That's Krem2's weather impact.
"91-year-old Ed Dwight is the oldest man to ever travel to space, but the greatest obstacle he says he's ever overcome was right here on Earth, and wants to make other men take notice of their health."
CBS's Kelly Worthman has his story now from Colorado.
Going 100 miles an hour, you know.
Actually, just 6 months ago, Ed Dwight was going more than 2,000 miles an hour as he rocketed into space.
And it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen when you start looking down at the Earth. Oh.
It was a historic journey for the now 91-year-old astronaut. The launch also marking nearly 1 year since he was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
I was pretty knocked off my feet. What in the world? How did that happen?
All right, good morning.
Dr. Juan Montoya is part of Mr. Dwight's cancer care team at Advent Health, where Ed received dozens of rounds of radiation.
The decision to treat really made sense, for him. And so I think that's what's important is that we strive to personalize treatment approaches to the individuals. And
as with any cancer, early detection is key. For prostate cancer, it's recommended men begin screenings as early as 45 years old.
It's just a simple blood draw. It takes a moment to do. It's not very uncomfortable.
It's not something to be ashamed of because it happens and it's more prevalent than people think.
All the more reason why Ed is encouraging men to take charge of their health. He says ask a lot of questions and always take on life's challenges and triumphs with a positive attitude. Kelly Worthman, CBS News, Denver.
And the good news is Ed is currently considered cancer-free.
Well, here's one for you. Today goes into the books as pretty average. High in the mid-60s, a low near 40 degrees. It's about normal, but coming up, we're talking a big day in the world of weather tomorrow and a warming pattern that takes us into next week.
We rely on our partners at Ferguson to make sure everything runs smoothly, from product selection to finished project.
Shop the best selection of brands like Cafe Appliances at your local Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery.
What I really love about mountain biking is how you just get away from it all. The wind in your face, the fresh air, and the speed and the curves. To me, it's therapy. There is nothing like the Wenatchee Valley. You have trees, you have open fields, and of course the views. We really have it all here. We love this place, and we think you will too.
Krem2's Weather Impact pinpoints the days you need to be alert. Every weekday morning on Up with Prem, I'll show you exactly when, where, and how the weather will impact you and how to stay safe. Watch my weather impact forecast only on Up with Prem.
The January 6th riot and former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election are taking center stage, with Trump campaigning in Michigan.
In the meantime, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Wisconsin looking for support from disenfranchised Republican voters. Bradley Blackburn has more details now from New York.
Vice President Kamala Harris arrived in Ripon, Wisconsin, the birthplace of the Republican Party, to try to persuade GOP voters to choose her instead of Trump. Former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney is campaigning with her today, making the pitch that former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election should disqualify him from serving again. In a newly unsealed court filing, special counsel Jack Smith alleges Trump resorted to crimes in an effort to stay in office.
We did much better in 2020. We won. We did win. It was a rigged election.
Trump repeated the false claim that he won the election. He urged his supporters to vote in order to avoid a repeat of 4 years ago.
Go out and we have to be too big to rig. You know that. Too big to rig. Turn out and vote in record numbers. Too big to rig.
Harris has made reproductive rights a centerpiece of her campaign, and one surprising Republican is echoing that message.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard.
Former First Lady Melania Trump appeared to show support for a woman's right to choose in a video posted on Twitter, touting her upcoming book. It was Trump's Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade, and he says it should be up to the states to decide their own abortion laws. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
And Democratic vice presidential candidate and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will make a stop in our state next week.
The Washington State Democratic Party says he'll attend a private event at Hunts Point on Tuesday. The party has not released details about the event or who will attend. Meantime, the FBI releases statistics about violent crimes every year, and you'll often hear politicians citing that on the campaign trail. But just how accurate is that data?
Brandon Lewis from our Verify team has the answer.
We're getting a lot of questions about the FBI's annual crime data. A viral post claims it shows violent crime is down since 2020, but a reply with nearly 1 million views says that's misleading because it excludes more than a third of police departments, including some of the nation's largest cities. Donald Trump shared a similar claim last month. Several Verify viewers reached out to ask if most large cities are really excluded. So let's verify. Our sources are the FBI, the Brennan Center for Justice, and Jeff Asher, a crime data analyst and co-founder of the data analytics firm Datalytics. FBI data is based on information voluntarily reported by federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. And Asher tells Verify that historically, a large majority of departments participate. So, where do the claims about the data excluding big cities come from? In 2021, the FBI started using a new reporting system, and many departments weren't ready. Some cities, like New York and Los Angeles, didn't report that year, and others, like Chicago, reported only partial data. The issue only lasted 1 year, and last year, Police departments that cover more than 94% of Americans reported data, including every city with more than 1 million people.
For the most part, with the exception of 2021 when they were undergoing the transition, the FBI's data is the closest we have to an accurate, precise count of the number of reported crimes each year.
So, no, the FBI's recently released 2023 crime data does not exclude many large cities. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Well, tonight, NASA reporting the largest solar flare in 7 years. The flare peaked early this morning, triggering shortwave radio blackouts over Africa and Europe.
Yeah, the monster flare was pointed directly at Earth, and now there is hope that we could see some pretty incredibly vivid aurora as this strong geomagnetic storm is headed our way. So there is a chance that you could see them right here in the inland Northwest tonight. We just need the cloud cover to cooperate.
It's looking pretty good. And one of our viewers out in Ritzville said clouds are starting to clear, so signs are there that it's happening. All we needed to do is just hold off, and I think this one's more of an earlier than later. The first wave of it hits today. There are more chances this weekend because it is so big, but really it's 8 o'clock it's going to be dark, so if you just step outside and go, whoa.
Yeah. Maybe use your phone's camera, because that seems to pick it up better than the naked eye.
I'm going to do it.
That's a pro tip. Mark, last one, the one in March, was that May?
May. Sounds about right, yeah.
It was May. You saw it at your house in town.
Yeah, on the South Hill.
Yeah, so there is a chance you too could see it, but let's go ahead and talk about it because there is a big thing going on with it. It's a really, really good shot. It's one of those ones that's such a good chance of seeing the aurora that some people watching right now, if you live in far northern Washington or North Idaho, you probably just get to go like this. That's looking straight up instead of looking off to the north. This would be looking to the north for me. You guys know that? That's north in the studio. Yeah, there you go. Blowing dust and increased fire danger as well. So let's talk about the aurora first. Basically, along the Canadian border, you can just look straight up. Anywhere south, you can just look to the north or just look around. It might even be overhead. This is a good chance of seeing it. Best chance being after the sun goes down. We're pulling in some of that dry air right now as we speak, and that's a good sign if you want to get out and see it. Back behind it comes our next storm. There it is. Remember we talked about this. The energy, the storm, the front, all of that is taking aim at us as we move through the next day. That is going to bring us a round of wind and eventually rain. The wind starts around noon. We have blowing dust advisories from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and wind advisories for that time as well. Wind is going to be strong enough to kick up dust. I would say at the 2 to 7 p.m. range, it looks a lot like what we saw on Sunday. On top of that, we have red flag warnings. Those run from noon to 6 p.m. They run until the frontal boundary arrives. It is likely the frontal boundary arrives a little bit earlier, but it is still something we're keeping an eye on. Wind picks up throughout the day. I think strongest is going to be as the front passes. So right in that 5 to 7 o'clock range, 3 to 7, 3 to 6. There you go. So from noon to 7, we're talking about the blowing dust and increased fire danger. Here's the frontal boundary. It moves through. Forecast models are still saying a ton of rain. I don't necessarily think that's a thing. I think instead it's going to be a pretty pronounced round of showers that moves through. But most of us, even if you're really doing it, you're picking up less than 1/10 of an inch of rain. Here in Spokane, 5/100ths of an inch. Enough to wet the roads, but that's really about it. 64 degrees as the wind and rain move in. 65 and sunny on Saturday, 70s by Sunday, and staying warm through most of next week.
We rely on our partners at Ferguson to make sure everything runs smoothly, from product selection to finished project.
Shop the best selection of brands like Signature Kitchen Suite at your local Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery.
What I really love about mountain biking is how you just get away from it all. The wind in your face,